This week's Performance Anxiety features photographer Jim Cummins. You may recognize his work with Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Aretha Franklin, The Who, Stevie Wonder, and more. You may also recognize his work from things like the 1980 NBA All-Star Game. We're pleased to have Jim on as he starts a new lecture series, so please enjoy Jim Cummins.
Hi, I'm Jim Cummins, photographer, videographer, consultant, and I've been doing this now for 51 years, and I'm doing this interview for Marche, Performance Anxiety.
I know you have an event coming up next weekend, is that right?
Yeah, the 17th, yeah. I have a workshop coming up, and it's based on the topics will be the three areas of photography that, or imagery as I call it now. I mean, you can't really call it photography.
Yeah. Yeah.
The three areas of imagery that I've been involved in for the last 51 years, which is entertainment, sports, and journalism. I'll be speaking on convergence journalism, which is the new journalism.
Okay. Oh, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be. It's going to be a lot of, I want it to be something that's based on information that I can pass on.
Okay.
Because it's a brand new ball game out here now as far as imagery.
Oh, God, yeah.
Gone are the days of the dark room. Gone are the days of when you're getting assignments from a newspaper or a magazine. And you have to be now, take it the other way and be more creative and bring in your own stories.
Yeah.
And, I think I think that that's good. It's a big change. It's not a lot of money, but, you can, I think if you're creative enough in this business right now with all the things that are at your, within reach that are on what I call a palette. You've got video, you've got stills, you've got cell phone. You have to know lighting, and writing is another important thing.
Yeah.
As well as film. I mean, you could still take it back and do film. So those are the things that you're dealing with now as far as being an image maker.
Well, the landscape, like you're saying, has definitely changed. And regular listeners of the show would know that I used to be a photographer. I went to college for it and did it for a decade or so, and I miss the days of film. I really do. I was I went to Rochester Institute of Technology in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I went there in the early 90s, had a blast, loved it. Ended up leaving early to get into the field. And I will be 100% honest, it's because my grades were terrible. But I ended up getting into the field and really enjoying using what I learned. But it is, you're right, it's absolutely a completely new landscape. There's no waiting for film. You don't have to rush film to a developer. You don't have to run into the darkroom and do contact sheets. And it's
those days are gone.
It's so sad. I miss the smells of developer and fixer, and it's just everything has changed, and happened so quickly. Yeah,
it did. It's like 20 years ago, close to 25. It really made a big drastic change. And it's just been on speed since that time.
Yeah.
No one would ever, well, I recognized the changes that were taking place, and that, equipment was just going to be so far out. I mean, you haven't reached the end of it yet, to tell you the truth. There's so many other things that are coming up.
Oh yeah, there. I mean,
when you consider you got cameras with eye control.
Yeah, and there's ones that shoot so many different wavelengths that aren't even in the visible spectrum at this point.
Right. Well, that's been around for a while. It's just that nobody could afford it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And it was a pretty much a government kind of thing, was as far, because at one time Kodak was making over about 120 types of film.
Yeah.
For different things. About 25, maybe 30 years ago, I was working for Bell Labs, and Bell Labs News, to be exact.
Okay.
And they had every 25 miles in Jersey, there was a terminal that you had to climb up, and you had to go in and you had to photograph the terminal itself. And the only way, it was dark. You had like one light, maybe. And the only way that you could determine it was with a certain type of film that could shoot in just about total darkness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You could put the camera in your pocket and photograph the change.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but the sensitivity of the film was so structured that it determined when certain terminals were turning gray.
Oh, wow.
Or, and they would replace them based on what you put back with your film. So this film was like exceptional. I figured, hey, this is good for rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
You got a film like that. So they were very strict on things, on returning stuff. And, so they, I got handed, I think, about 8 rolls of film, and I had to go up and I had to cover about 100 miles. Okay. And it was like every 20 miles, you had to go and you had to photograph various stages. And so I figured, well, hey, I'm going to take this to a concert. Because at the time I was doing a lot of rock and roll.
Yeah. So
when I came back in, I said, they said, you got any films? And I said, oh, no, I shot the whole thing. Yeah. So they just looked at me and they said, yeah, okay, all right. All right. So look, we know you got a couple of rolls of this film, Yeah. Now, here's your problem. When are you going to get it developed?
Oh, wow, yeah. That's
you ain't going to find Acufine to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Or, it's not the formula for this stuff is under lock and key.
Yeah, you can't just take it to a photo mat and
yeah, right. You couldn't do that. You could even go to a good lab and do that. I mean, they just did not have that technology. But the technology is there. It's ahead of itself now, but it's just so much that you can do until it becomes cheaper.
Yeah.
As far as imagery, and even as far as notebooks and battery life and liquid lenses. And these are all things that are coming about. And they're here, but they're not in abundance because they're very expensive.
Just like that film.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I mean, I was all set to, I had a concert coming up. I had an earmark for, how many frames I would use. Oh, yeah. I was ready.
So let's talk a little bit about that, too. I want to find out how you got into doing music photography. You started shooting professionally in the mid-'60s, is that right?
Yeah.
How did you get started professionally?
Just started doing it. I mean, I've been photographing since the age of 8.
Okay.
Okay, so I've been doing it since then. And when I got to be, I came out the Marine Corps, and I got started getting jobs shooting.
Okay.
Professionally. And then 1968 is when it turned around. There was a concert at Madison Square Garden, May 28th, 1968. And it was the first concert at the new Madison Square Garden.
Oh, okay.
And on the bill were Sonny and Cher, Rascals, King Curtis, Sam and Dave and Aretha.
Okay.
And every single group, all the groups I just mentioned, had either a number 1 or number 2 hit, or had number 1 or number 2 hits within the last weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so a friend of mine, she said, hey, listen, this concert, Garden, I want to go. Let's go. I said, all right. So I got tickets. She says, well, get credentials. I said, all right. So I got credentials. She said, take along a bunch of cameras. I said, I took along a bunch of cameras. And I photographed the show. And she turned around and said, well, this is sponsored by Atlantic Records. I said, yeah. So she said, well, get your film up to Atlantic. She saw the film, said, you should get this up to Atlantic. I said, all right, okay, I'll get it up there. So I got it up there. They liked the material that they saw. They said, well, we can't use anything right now. However, we will definitely keep you in mind if, we need something from you. You got, okay. I had a good take. I was happy with the take that I got. It was an exciting show, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
Up till now, it's probably, I would say, one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Oh, really? Oh, that's.
Yeah, everybody came on and was dynamic. Sam and Dave came on and the floor was shaking.
Oh, I love Sam and Dave.
And it was like, and they put on such a show that Aretha had to wait like about 15, 20 minutes before she came on.
Oh, my gosh.
Because the crowd was just wild. Sam and Dave just let they were like that. They could raise the temperature of the show very quickly.
Man, and
anyway,
to make Aretha have to wait for everybody to calm down, that's something.
Yeah, for them. Yeah. So, and it was in the round, with the stage revolving. So I mean, the excitement was just like. So took the film to Atlantic, and they said, hey, we like this stuff. We'll, keep you in mind. Definitely keep you in mind. So I waited about a week. I didn't get anything back, so I called them, and they said, "Oh, you called just in time. We're using 2 of your pictures for album covers."
Oh, wow!
Sam and Dave, I Thank You album, and Aretha for Aretha in Paris.
Oh, wow!
That was my first 2 albums. So from that point, they gave me Wilson Pickett to photograph, and after that, they said, "Well, look, we'd like you to be contract and do 25 albums per quarter."
Oh my God!
Now you didn't always get 25, but you'd photograph for 25, and you get 15, 20.
Oh man!
A couple of times there, I got 25. So I worked in the music business till about close to the mid '80s.
Oh wow!
I was doing album cover work, and that's how I got started.
Well, I was looking at a list of the people you've photographed, and it's absolutely insane. I'm going to list some of these people here. Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Aretha Franklin, The Who, B.B. King, Eric Clapton, obviously Sam and Dave, like you said, Stevie Wonder. Let's see. Who else is blowing me away here? Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, James Brown, the Rolling Stones, Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, the list just goes on. Velvet Underground, The Doors. That's an incredible list, and that's maybe half the list of what I'd found.
Yeah, I've got over as I believe now I have well over 1,000 album covers that I've done.
Oh my gosh!
And I did a lot of gospel, and I did a lot of artists that I had done. If I did one album cover, in some cases I've done 5 or 6.
Wow! Now, during this time period, were you based in the New York City area, or were you traveling?
Yeah, I would travel as far as the West Coast to something, but most of the time I was up and down the East Coast. Okay,
and was that on something like they would give you an assignment, say, we need you to shoot, I don't know, Glenn Campbell. So go out to the West Coast and shoot him.
Well, I did him here. He came here. He was at the Garden State Arts Center, which was the Garden State Arts Center at the time.
Okay.
And he was there doing an album. And they were recording, naturally. And so I photographed them there. And photographed them behind stage as well as, in concert.
So
they would ask me, it was Atlantic, where I worked for Atlantic, London, Mercury, Capitol, all the major record companies.
Oh yeah, like Columbia, and I'm looking at.
There was only I like to do concert work. I mean, yeah, you could do pose stuff, but the excitement to me was a concert where you see these people perform when you get to see the excitement that they generate and, you know, the highlights of the concert, that was, to me, the place to be to really show the artists what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen some of your photographs.
So I wound up, you know, there were some weekends where I'd be doing like 3 concerts.
Oh, wow.
Of different artists. And I spent a lot of time in Fillmore. I worked for Fillmore for a moment. And so a lot of concerts through there, a lot of concerts through the Garden.
Okay.
And the Palladium, different places, yeah.
And I'm going to stop for 1 second here. I've got some kind of weird technical issue with my cord here.
So from that point, I got into sports.
Okay. And so how did that transition come about?
That came about with a writer. A writer suggested a sports writer. Friend of mine, she brought her father by, and he's sports. Shirley Povich. I don't know if you heard the name.
Could you repeat the name again?
Shirley Povich.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that name.
Yeah, he was the writer for the Washington Post.
Okay.
So his daughter and I worked together at Newsweek, and we were friends. And she brought her father by, brought him by my office, and we talked. And he said, "Let me see what your portfolio." So I showed him what I had. I had a big portfolio with albums, some of the album covers I've done. And he said, "Kid, get into sports. He said, start doing sports."
Okay.
He said, "You got the natural, you're just get it." And I followed his advice, and sure enough, I found myself doing quite a bit of sports.
So yeah, you ended up being
I photographed just about every major sport.
Yeah,
curling. I've done curling. I've done polo. I've done some ridiculous things.
But you ended up being a staff photographer for the NBA.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, did that make it get you on the road traveling, or were you a staff photographer?
Oh yeah, that was worse than rock and roll. I mean, that was like. Rock and roll, and shooting rock and roll, I would have 15 days on the road, and then about 5 days that I had a break, and that time was usually spent editing film, then back out on the road again. Okay. And with the NBA, it was on the road just constantly. I mean, I've covered the most I've covered, and after a while that became novel too. It was 100 games a season.
Oh wow, jeez,
pro game, and possibly more than that because I was covering ABA ball at the same time.
Oh wow!
But I got into the NBA. I put together a magazine a long time ago. Did some. There was a company called Mako, and they put out a magazine, and they asked me to come in and send me the games and I photographed. And then the NBA called me and they said, look, we got another position open. There was only two of us at the time. And what we were required to do, it was different than what it is now.
Okay.
What we were required to do was to catch judgment calls.
Oh.
In other words, if somebody was complaining about something or something that they didn't see, we'd have it, myself and the other photographer would have it on film. He covered the West Coast, I covered the East Coast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, in other words, there was maybe a foul situation. It was continuous between two teams. I don't know if you do. Referees talk quite a bit. They know everything that goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, they know players' birthmark.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they can. I got to hand it to them because they know. First of all, they know the game.
Yeah. And
they have anticipations of what's going to happen. So, I can say one story that was pretty funny. There used to be only two officials. Okay.
Okay.
And the way they are, there's certain areas that they can't see what's going on. as a
Right.
third official would see that they can't. They're blindsided, and the coaches tell the players, pull shit off in there,
Yeah.
do stuff, within those boundaries. If you
Oh,
see that alignment
yeah.
come up, pulling a guy's jock strap or, step on his foot
Yeah.
or pull a shirt. No, I'm serious. This is what went on.
Oh
So
my gosh.
the officials knew this. So one day there was a particular game where it was like really, um, uh, there was a lot of stuff going on between a couple of players, like 4 players.
Okay.
So they said, you see the stuff, don't you? I said, yeah, I see certain things. They said, well, when you see it, I had a unipod. And they said, when you see a foul, that we get that angle and we're blindsided, you see the foul, tap your unipod on the floor.
Oh.
So I would see something go on, I tap the unipod on the floor, and they blow the whistle. So the players started like saying, how did you see that? What, how did you know I did that to him? That was the thing.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So it cooled it down for a while, but then they got 3 officials in, and, they didn't need, but at that time, you were in a sense, a third official because you were there to capture, the game for, the purpose of, determining fouls, determining who was running a zone.
Okay.
And, things like that. And, also to get a lot of the foul situation. A lot of the foul situation. A lot of fouling goes, that went on at that time. A lot of grabbing, a lot of pushing and shoving.
So this was what about the 70s, mid 70s or so? Or
70s through to the 80s. I shot into like 1983.
Okay. And you're still
83, 84.
now, and you're still going to concerts and shooting at this time, or are you just specifically focusing on sports?
No, I again, with times, what happened was 77, I walked in. I was doing a couple of things for the Times per year. I get about 3 or 4 things
Okay.
from the Times per year. And finally, one day, I was looking at the sports section, and, like, some of this stuff I could do. So I called my friend over there. I said, I'd like to do more. So he said, all right, I'll set you up with the photo editor.
Okay.
So he set me up with the photo editor, and the photo editor said, yeah, I like, we can really use you right now. And I didn't understand the meaning of that at that time. But it quickly got pointed out to me. The Times was changing over their format to more pictures, bigger pictures, and a better type of picture, to do some things that were different. And I went to the interview, and the guy said, look, I like what you do. You're interested in doing a lot of sports. I said, well, yeah. So he sent me upstairs to the sports department.
Okay.
So they didn't believe that he sent me up there because he never sent anybody up there.
Oh, geez.
So they said they thought I was some kind of spy or something. They didn't know. They looked at me, like I had 2 heads. Yeah, no, that's it. So I said, they said, Dane sent you up here? I said, yeah. So they said, well, all right. So they took my portfolio, went in an office, came back out, and they looked around the corner. They saw I was still there. Yeah, hi. And then they looked again, and they called me in the office. And what I thought was only 2 people in there turned out to be 3.
Okay.
There's a guy standing over in the corner. And, of course, you see this kind of thing. You know who's in charge. That's the guy standing over to the side.
Right,
He didn't have a word to say, but they were sitting at the desk, and they were going through my portfolio. And he was just standing over on the side. And they said the only thing that was missing, the way they interviewed me, was, how the old movies where the detectives are sitting around the suspect, and they said, where were you on the night of the 21st?
Yes, yes.
And the only thing that was missing was the light in my face. Okay, but they grilled me. I mean, they really did. They said, do you think hockey's a horizontal sport? I said, well, no. Yes, it's run on the horizontal, but there's things that can happen vertically, and you have to be prepared for that. I like to I don't want to get stuck in, that it's a horizontal thing when you see a vertical shot.
Right, right.
So a couple of minutes went by, and I said, you think basketball is strictly vertical? I said, no. I said, there again, same thing. I said, I'm not tied down to a particular set of rules. I'm going by how the game is going to go. It could go horizontally, it could go diagonally,
Right.
It can go any which way. So you look for those things. You the game, your players, things that are, you anticipate certain things that are going to happen, and that's how I work it. So I sensed the guy on the side after like about 4 questions like this, and with detailed answers, that he nodded and then walked out the room.
Oh.
And I found out very quickly that the guy, I didn't find out quickly, really. I found out after a couple of weeks that the guy who was standing on the side was Lou Silverstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, you know who he is.
Yes.
He designed the Times.
Yeah.
With Sports Monday, Business Day, the sections, the Long Island, New York, Manhattan, Jersey sections.
Oh,
and, so he, through that, I was doing sports, and then they started sending me to other sections because I had the same, sensitivity towards subject matter. It didn't have to be a square picture. It didn't have to be, and the other thing was that they were able to tell me, hey, look, we want something. We got a square hole. We want to fill that. You got an idea? Yeah, I got an idea. I'll bring it in.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was with them for 7 years at the time, for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Until I went to Newsday.
Oh,
and the strangest part about it was that as they were changing, they were trying to hit the photographers to, hey, change your style of shoot, do this, do that. And so I was like what I term as the man they love to hate, because I would try different things.
Ah, okay.
I would try different things. I tried setting up remotes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
At some of these games. And the one thing, 1980, I think it was 1980, I was working for the NBA, and the NBA, they said I was shooting Nikon, and they said, they called me in the office, and they said, you're shooting Nikon, right? I said, yeah. I said, you happy with it? I said, yeah, sure. Using it. They said, well, from now on, you're shooting Canon. I said, but I got Nikons. Why would I want to change over to Canon? This is, maybe you don't understand. From now on, you're shooting Canon. So I said, okay, what's the deal? What's the deal here? So I said, Canon is now the official camera of the NBA. So all your stuff, all your Nikon stuff is being replaced.
Oh, wow.
So I had to learn a system real quick.
That's a big deal. I don't know. People may not realize how big of a deal that is.
Yeah, no, it was. So that day, on top of that, they asked me, they said, can you think of anything special you'd want to do with this equipment? So I said, all right, I got one for you. I said, let me set up a tandem. Now, I don't know if you don't know what a tandem is. A tandem is a multi-camera hookup.
Right.
And you run it remote. You can't be in. I had 6 cameras up. I had 2 cameras overhead, 2 cameras on the floor, and 2 cameras on the backboard.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
So, and I did this for the All-Star game.
Oh, okay.
Which you got the maximum out of because they're constantly transitioning players. And
yeah.
certain things may be going down on the other end of the floor. If you got 2 cameras going down there, or 1 camera going down there where it's happening, or in some cases, maybe even 3 cameras. So I had a remote box that I was working off of.
Okay.
And I had a 7th camera on the side.
Man.
So that went off very well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you remember what year this was?
I think it was 1980. 1980. Yeah.
Oh, right. Because I'm going to have to look up some of these images and see what I can find on these, because I'm really intrigued to take a look at this.
Those pictures went quick.
I'll bet.
Those pictures went quick.
Man. So
So they'd never had anything set up like that before.
I can imagine if they're trying to, if they're asking you what you want to do and if there's anything special, and I can imagine how blown away they must have been.
Yeah. So I started, for a moment, I became a spokesman for them,
That's wild. Oh my gosh.
And so then there's other things that worked with zoom lenses, color print film. But I've always been wanting to try something different. I like a challenge. I like to photograph a challenge.
Oh gosh,
I don't want to get stuck in the same thing. Day in, day out. And I started seeing ways zooms were becoming better made. There was better zooms out. So I got into that early, and also color print film I got into early, and then autofocus was my biggest challenge, and I got into that. First thing.
Okay.
And it all came. Canon used to make I don't know if you familiar with the Canon system.
I love Canon. That's the system that I use actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had at one time. They had an autofocus lens. It was a tan lens. It looked like a box, and it was 35 to 70.
Okay.
Now, there wasn't a lot you could do with this. It was an autofocus lens. Now, what you do is there's a button where you focus on the lens, and then you shoot, the shutter on the camera.
Right.
But you autofocus, and then you click. And so I had a game to do on the West Coast. Needed to put up. I was trying to decide which lens to use, and I wanted a zoom lens that I could, check out different focal lengths.
Right.
On the backboard. So I called in and I said, look, can you ship me a lens? Something to 135, anything from there to, 135, 105.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, okay. So they called me back about 20 minutes later and said, we don't have anything in the house. We don't have anything in the locker.
Oh.
Will you settle for something different? I said, well, yeah. I said, it doesn't have to be that long at this point. So they had this, they said, well, we got this 35 to 70. It's an autofocus lens. It's the only one. There were no autofocus lenses at the time.
Wow.
That was the only one. And it was like a, how could you say? It was a white elephant. Nobody wanted to use it.
Right.
It collected dust. It was a doorstop. So they said, you mind if we send you this? They said, what you got to do critical? I said, no, I just need to really make some adjustments, see what focal length I want to use.
Right.
So they said, okay. So they shipped it out to me. So I used it, came back home. Nobody was asking for it. So I had it on my desk, and I would play with it. I put a camera on it, and then I had an extra camera that I had, and I'd play with it. And I said, this is a hell of a concept when you think about it. A camera that you can focus automatically.
Right.
I said, this is a hell of a concept.
Yeah, yeah.
So I told him, I said, well, look, if you ever, and I told him, I said, I was holding on to it. I had it for months. I think I might have had it for about a year.
Oh, wow.
And but nobody was asking for it. Nobody was requesting it.
Exactly. Nobody cared.
Nobody was asking for it out of a loan program or nothing.
Oh, man.
And so they said, so I finally turned it in. I said, look, if you ever come up with this concept, that you advance this concept, I want to know. So it might have been months later, they shipped me two 620s, a 35 millimeter lens, a 35 to 105,
okay,
and 70 to 200.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they said, here you go. They sent it to they sent it to 30 photographers around the world.
Oh, man.
All right. And I loved it. I put the manual focus stuff to one side, played with this thing for about a few days before I had to do something serious.
Yeah.
and took it right out, and was out in the street with it.
Okay.
And everybody looked at me like I was. Well, no, not really, not really, because I mean, everybody knew that I tried some different things, so I wasn't looked at as really being crazy. But they just wanted to see what I was going to do with it.
Yeah, if you had that reputation, then they're curious as to what you're working with now.
Yeah, they were curious as to what. So it must have been about. Oh, I know what I was covering. I was covering the Chambers trial.
Okay.
And there's where you really needed, because they hurried him in so quick, and you had a gang of photographers, or what I call a gaggle of photographers that were, I mean, they'd be on top of one another. Well, have you worked in any press situations,
Yes.
Like, purple walks and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah. I've worked
okay, well.
Minimal, but yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, you know what it's like.
Yeah, you're all crammed together, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I managed to get, with that, Chambers coming in, and I got a series of shots. And at the time, they had a very rapid flash that was like as quick as there used to be a light I call a mighty light.
Okay.
And the mighty light was a very fast recycling time.
Oh, right.
Okay. I mean, it was like once a second, boom, 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 boom,
wow.
boom. Like you could do something like that. Yeah. And this was an old system, and it took a huge battery.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it was worth having. But they came out with this thing called a 100, Easy 100, and it was the size of a pack of cigarettes. I still got a couple here.
Oh, jeez.
I still got a couple, yeah, and they were very, very fast. They took a 2CR5 battery, same battery as the camera, as the 620, which made it very easy.
Yeah.
So you had an easy system with the 620. You had a motorized camera, autofocus, and you had the same battery, 2CR5.
That's nice.
So it was about a week later. We're covering the trial, so I had, to make a long story short, left my equipment on the side and stepped away. And then when I came back to where I thought my equipment was, I saw it didn't look like it was Canon. It was autofocus, 620s. And it was the same setup. And I said, I didn't think I left my equipment over here. So a guy comes over, Mario from AP. He says, I know. He says, as soon as I saw you using this, he said, I figured that there must be something to it. He says, so I went out. He says, I was able to get a hold of, this equipment.
Oh, man.
So, but I've been known for I like trying different things. I like, variety. Same thing with autofocus. When it first came in, there was really doubts about it.
Well, yeah, they were very slow, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And, well, they weren't slow. I mean, it was an adjustment.
Okay.
It was slow in people catching on.
Well, maybe that, yeah.
But it was pretty quick. It was based on the structure of autofocus, right? It's based on contrast.
Yes.
Okay, well now, autofocus is unbelievable. There's this new thing. It's not new, really. It's been around a few years called phase detection.
Okay.
And instead of one point, you've got like maybe 153 points within the lens that is capable of grabbing the frame and being sharp. Now, I didn't trust phase detection for a long time, but recently, close to a year ago, I did an article for a Sony camera called the RX10M4.
Okay.
Okay, which is a remarkable system. I mean, it's like, I did a review on it for Sony. I'll send you the info on it.
Yeah, please do.
When you handle this camera, or when you see this camera, you'll probably want to sell one of your kids to get
it. They maybe want to do that on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, right. But you really want to, with clothes, sell them with clothes.
Yeah.
Pack a bag.
Yeah. Hey, the kids and all the accessories.
Yeah. So, that right now, to me, that camera is the joint.
That's
when I wrote the article, I even wrote in there, I said, the only thing, because I went after the camera. I went after it from the aspect that everybody talks about. Oh, the camera doesn't do this. It's that's a design flaws in it, or design compromises, they'll call it, or design flaws.
Right.
And they'll criticize what it can't do. Hey, if you look at the camera and read the specs and look at what the glasses they put in it, they put in a spheric element into this, and you know how expensive a spheric glass is.
Yes.
So they put this in, and I said, no, I'm going to approach it from what the camera can do and just take it through challenges. And I wrote even in the preface to it, I said, the only thing that I don't like about this camera is the fact that it doesn't do laundry.
Oh, man.
If you can get that in, then, I'll be completely happy. So, but yeah, that's, been very fortunate, I think, in this business. I mean, very fortunate in the things that I've been able to cover. And in many cases, been able to follow my editorial decisions in what I shoot.
Well, if you're getting the results that they want, then yeah, it makes sense that they would. Yeah,
well, I've just been fortunate. I've seen a lot of good music. I mean, a lot of good music.
Yeah, and I definitely want to ask you some more about some of the work you've done with musicians. I mean, you've shot some iconic images of artists like Jimi Hendrix, bands like Led Zeppelin, Janis Joplin, Rolling Stones. How does it work in when they're recording? They're in studio. You've got some fantastic pictures of Hendrix in studio recording.
Yeah, well, the studio is a place where, again, I was very fortunate that I was chosen to do those things in the studio. Led Zeppelin, Hendrix, Modern Jazz Quartet, a number of artists in the studio. Pickett.
Wicked Wilson Pickett.
I was very fortunate because I in any situation I go into, I want to be unobtrusive.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be unobtrusive. They say he's here, but we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I usually tuck myself away in a position and just stay out of the way, because the studio is a very high pressured situation.
Right.
I can't begin to tell you how high pressure it's like a championship fight.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. That makes a lot.
That's the easiest way that I can describe it. It's like a Muhammad Ali fight.
So
when you've got artists of the stature of Hendrix and and Roberta Randani, Jimmy, and a number of different groups that I've had the opportunity to be in the studio and photograph.
So I imagine that's also more of a high pressure situation for you then too, because you don't want to disturb the process, but you're there to document the process.
Exactly. So you stay out. You stay out of the way. Stay the hell out of the way. And I've been very fortunate in the studios I worked in. Yeah, that's where I got left in the studio one night. They forgot I was in there.
Really? Who were you shooting?
Yeah, lights are going out and whatnot, and they're closing the door. I said, hey, yeah.
Who were you shooting at the time?
What was I shooting at the time?
Yeah, what band or what artist?
Oh, Roy Ayers.
Oh, okay.
Roy Ayers, yeah.
Okay, great. Now, it sounds
so
like
I got in there before everybody else, and they didn't even know, I was there.
So you were just you're doing what you're supposed to do, documenting it and staying out of the way. So that's funny then. Now it sounds to me like
yeah.